Hello, and welcome to Two Profs in a Pod. I'm Tenisha.
I'm Beth.
And we are faculty developers and faculty at Glendale Community College in Arizona. And we are so excited that you are joining us here on today.
What are we talking about today, Tenisha?
Well, today we are talking about mentors. So this episode is all things mentors, as far as what they are, what does it mean, et cetera, et cetera. You will hear about it throughout this episode. So we are excited for this conversation. So Beth, before we jump into our conversation, could you please tell us, why are we talking about this?
Well, this is the second in our series on teaching in 2023. And we are answering the question, what does it mean to mentor, or exploring that question rather. Mentors and mentoring have been on our list of possible topics to talk about for probably 6 years.
Yes.
So we're finally getting to it. Let's just say it's been on our radar for a long time.
For a really long time, yes.
And we'd like to invite our listeners to reflect on their mentors and also to think about themselves in the mentor role as they're listening today. So what are mentors?
That's a good question, because I think we just assume that we know what mentors are, but we don't necessarily think about like what is the definition of a mentor. And we looked up that information. And the information we found is that a mentor is described as an experienced and trusted advisor. I like that word trust, right? You do have to have that trust there with the mentor.
Yes.
And I feel like that's a really good definition. And I love the simplicity of it as well. It's not super complex. It's like experience, trust, and they advise. That's pretty much straight up and laid out and very, very clear what a mentor is based off of the description and the definition that we have.
And Tenisha and I have been very lucky because in our first several years here of employment at Glendale Community College, we were expected to seek out mentors.
Yes.
And they became kind of part of our individual development plan. And now Tenisha and I are at the place where we get to be mentors.
Yes.
And so the tables have turned a little bit.
Yes.
And so we're fortunate that we've been able to be in both roles.
Right. We're definitely on the other side.
Do you have mentors still, Tenisha?
I do. And I've had the mentors before coming here to teach at GCC. So I've had them for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And I do consider them mentors. Whether or not they're aware of that, I really don't know. Now that I think about it, I should probably look into that. But I do consider them mentors because of the fact that I feel like they really meet the criteria of the definition that I just read, is that they are experienced and they're trusted. Mm-hmm. And they are definitely my advisors. So when I have questions about anything more on the professional front, anything that has to do with, education, school, teaching, learning, just all types of things, more on the professional side of things, especially when it comes to my career personally. They are definitely people that I go to, or even in some instances collaborate with on different things as well. So there have been like a project that I've worked on before with one of my mentors that we did several years ago. So there is that opportunity as well, that I not only have mentors, but they are also people that I collaborate with as well. Mm-hmm. So they give me advice, and we have also collaborated. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I've had great mentors in my career, and this is another reason we're talking about it, because mentors are so important in a career in education. And I'm sure that there are other careers where mentors are vital, but in a position where we're dealing with human beings all day long,
right? I
think having someone to bounce ideas off of and dilemmas off of is so important. And I've had my very early mentors show up in my dreams, when I've been struggling with something, and, my subconscious populates one of my previous mentors into my dream, and I get some advice from them.
And they come in and drop knowledge for you.
They come in and
Nice.
give me some wisdom.
They're on call in the dreamscape.
They kind of are, yeah. Which is funny, right? Because it's not really them. It's me answering myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Giving you your own answers.
Yeah.
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 That's interesting.
So are you a mentor?
Yes, I am a mentor. Like we've mentioned before, here in our district, we do have what's called the IDP, which is the Individualized Development Plan, which is a part of our development process, you might say. So we focus on things like service and professional growth. And one part of the process is actually having mentors. So when Beth and I went through it, we had mentors. And now that we're removed, we are actually now have mentees. So we had mentors, now we have mentees. So I am a mentor. So it's definitely interesting being on the other side of things. Mm-hmm. Just this sense of, someone coming to you for advice, like looking for like information, looking for help and maybe deciding what to do on certain things. So it's really interesting being on the other side as far as being that source as opposed to being that person who is seeking that information.
Mm-hmm. I remember that shift for myself. Maybe I was in my career 10 or 12 years, and I vividly remember someone came and asked me for advice, and I remember thinking, oh, am I the mentor now? I don't want to be the mentor now. I still need my mentors, thinking that I could only be one or the other. But I definitely felt the weight of responsibility of someone relying on me to have some kind of wisdom. And it was a little frightening. I mean, I really resisted it.
Yeah.
But I think what I've come to understand too is that being a mentor isn't always having the answers.
Right.
That it's helping someone to arrive at whatever answer is for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless it's a very specific question, like where do I go for this discipline problem, or
right. Mm-hmm.
If it's something more pedagogical or something where somebody has some choices, helping them arrive at a decision that they can live with.
Right. And one thing that you mentioned that really sticks out to me is what you mentioned about responsibility, the importance of when you are a mentor, actually having the responsibility of being that go-to person, of being that source. And like, for example, if your mentee asks you to look over like a specific document that they might have to submit or a portfolio that they're putting together, and they're asking you to be an extra pair of eyes on it, you want to make sure you do an excellent job because you're doing your best to make sure that they are successful. But there is that sense of responsibility that you are the person who needs to provide that feedback or that wisdom or that advice that they're seeking. And hopefully you'll be able to help them and guide them in the best way that you can. And like you mentioned, you're not going to have all the answers, and that's okay. It's just like as professors, when we're in the front of the class, we're not going to have all of the answers. And sometimes all you can do in some situations is to say, sometimes I'll get back to you, or sometimes they are not seeking that advice. They really just want someone to sit and listen and to hear them out. So you can kind of step into that role in that way as well. But I think it's one of those things where, we have to be mindful and aware of the responsibility that we have, and whatever they're seeking, we can try to help them out in the best way that we can. But that definitely stuck out to me, what you said.
So our conversation so far has been about professional mentors or mentors and mentees in a professional kind of setting, a career setting. Because we see them as a source of knowledge in that particular career, right? That's the experience part of the definition. We haven't really talked about personal. You did a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I have way more mentors in my career
Right.
than I think I do in my personal life.
Right.
I could use some. If anyone would like to serve in that capacity, please reach out to Two Profs in a Pod. I'm looking for a personal mentor. Thank you.
Someone may reach out, Beth. You don't know.
Might.
You put out that call. You don't know what you might receive.
They might. We've also talked about a very formal arrangement for mentors that we've had here at GCC, where we don't, like new faculty who come in, we do not leave them hanging on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're, go find a mentor. Here's a list.
Mm-hmm. Here's
a mixer. Come to the mixer and meet people. So we don't leave them to try and succeed on their own.
Right.
They do get some help, and that's very formal. But we know that we also have informal situations and folks who, we're not required to do this anymore. So if we still have a mentor, that's maybe more of an informal situation.
Right. And there's definitely a different vibe and feel to it. Like formal, when we went through the process, there was the process of having to kind of document your interaction with your mentor, whether it's them observing you or them, doing other things for you in mentorship. Mm-hmm. So, but informal is definitely more, I feel like it's a different vibe. Mm-hmm. Like we have written here on our papers, organic, which I feel like they really are.
And people probably come into our lives, right? And we're not looking for that kind of relationship necessarily. Mm-hmm. And it just maybe turns into that.
Yeah, it just happens naturally. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the mentors that I have, it was more informal, the current ones that I have right now, and definitely more organic. So it's not like I planned for that to happen. It just naturally happened. So
we also, you know what? We talked about AI in our last episode.
Yes, we did.
A little bit. I think maybe that's going to creep into every episode because when we were talking about preparing this episode, I was like, well, wouldn't it be great to just have maybe it would be great, maybe not, to have like an AI mentor, and we could just have this person or AI at our call whenever we need something. And I was like, well, that's kind of like an assistant.
Yeah, because when you're talking about AI, you're thinking about robots, right? Like iRobot type of thing. Or are you thinking like a Siri type of thing?
Well, it could be that.
Okay. Either or.
Do you think Siri would respond in a mentor way?
I don't know. I haven't tested that, and I haven't tried that.
We're going to try that.
Maybe I have to try that and be like, Siri, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of my career?
Okay, we're going to try that.
Oh, my goodness. Now, another question that we came across was, do mentors have mentors? Mm-hmm. So.
Well, when I had that shift in my life where I really recognized that I had been in my career long enough that I was now that person that I had always looked to run to and ask questions of. Mm-hmm. And I got great feedback from my mentors always. Mm-hmm. And I remember the things they've said to me.
Right.
So I was thinking it was a one or the other. Mm. But, that's a limited way of thinking, right?
Right.
Like, of course.
Yeah.
People would still have mentors.
Yeah. And it makes me think of, like, for example, how there are therapists who have therapists, doctors, I'm sure, who have doctors, people who have people in their field that they can connect with and reach out to. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely see that as a part of mentorship.
So what are the most valuable either messages you've gotten from mentors or even just in general, the benefits from having a mentor?
I feel like one of the benefits of having a mentor has been like having like a sounding board, like a guide. I feel like when we're at different crossroads in our professional career, and maybe we're trying to figure out what direction we're going to go in, it really helps having someone to just talk it through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm thinking about, you know, let's see, what would be an example? I'm thinking about maybe, like, I'm just going to use an example. So I'm thinking about going back to school and getting my doctorates. So I think that is a conversation that has been had, you know, and I will put myself out there and say that's something that I have personally asked mentors, like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this. I'm considering going back and going for a doctorate degree. You know, what are your thoughts? What do you think? And then just kind of really just having a conversation about that and just helping me to just talk it through to kind of help me to kind of get a sense of maybe what direction I could go in.
Mm-hmm.
So I like having that sounding board, that guide, and just a simple 10-minute conversation can really go a super long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I think having a trusted person,
right,
for those big decisions.
Yeah. You know,
Even though ultimately you're the one that has to make the decision.
You do have to make the decision. Yeah. And big decision. You know, another decision I think about is, you know, some faculty who are trying to decide whether or not, you know, should I teach or should I go into leadership? Right. That's another big one that you may have to talk through with someone. So there's a lot of different things that you can talk about with your mentor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
One thing I really remember is, you know, I realized I was going to be teaching a little bit of Shakespeare in one of my courses, and I was panicking. And I went to one of my mentors, and I was like, I just feel lost. What am I supposed to do? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And she just gave me great advice. She said, well, that is one topic that people spend a lifetime studying, and they still don't know everything there is to know.
Mm-hmm.
You know more than your students.
Yeah.
And you're interested in learning more about it.
Right.
So, you know, try not to be nervous and just go with it.
Right.
It was great advice.
That is great advice.
I was ready to jump off a ledge somewhere. Because I didn't know. I thought, oh my gosh, I have to know all of this right now.
Right.
No, you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they were there to talk you.
I know.
To talk you down. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have a question on here about how to find a mentor. I think in the workplace, it's probably a little easier because we run into people that we strike up a conversation with.
Right.
And maybe we start a friendship with.
Right.
Or somebody in the department said, oh, you should go talk to so-and-so.
Right.
Or the department chair might say, you know, go talk to so-and-so about online teaching. Maybe you can get some insights. I think finding those life mentors who are gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit more challenging.
Right. I think that is a little bit more difficult to find on a personal level.
What would you say to that?
As far as how to find a personal?
Uh-huh.
I think maybe one way you can do it is maybe find, because I'm thinking about the work life and I'm thinking about like maybe how that can relate to real life. You know, like for example, we are around our colleagues. So maybe you can do the same thing if you're around like different groups that you're a part of, different, you know, whether it's a group that like a special interest group, like maybe you have some hobbies and maybe you can find someone who would be more than willing to kind of be that person for you. Like, for example, I mentioned that I do archery. So there are some seasoned folk at the archery range that I wouldn't mind being my mentor. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm hoping that being around in that space will help me to maybe connect with someone.
Yeah, that's
in that
great.
Sense. Mm-hmm.
There are so many resources on mentoring.
Yes.
I mean, so many. We gathered a few somewhat recent books written on the topic, and I guess the field of, you know, mentorship has grown considerably. So we will put a few book titles in our show notes to share with you. We hope that today's conversation has given you a chance to reflect on some of your mentors and to think about your approach maybe to mentoring a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I know I'm definitely reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, if you have enjoyed listening to this conversation and want to join in, connect with us on Twitter, follow at 2profsinapod, or leave a comment on our blog at 2profsinapod.blogspot.com. Remember, spell out the number 2. Other ways to show your support: subscribe in your favorite podcast app, write a review on Apple Podcasts, or tell your colleagues about the show. 2 Profs in a Pod is hosted by Beth Ayers, English faculty, and Tenisha Baca, communication faculty. The show is brought to you by the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Engagement at Glendale Community College in Arizona. Thank you so much for joining us.